Letters to a Young Therapist. Chapter 19, Danger. September 2nd. Dear Laura, this morning there is an end of summer feeling in the air. Birds are clumping up on the wires. Marching band music from a nearby high school blares through my study window. The asters, sunflowers, and surprised lilies bloom in the gardens. Last night I walked on Holmes Dam. For a moment I watched a red fox stalk mice in the yellow grasses. I've been pondering your question, what do you wish you had learned in school? During my first 5 years of PhD training, I listened to lectures on brain anatomy, the philosophy of science, schizophrenia, and the benefits of community programs. I learned how to induce trances, interpret responses to ink blots, and write a report. But nobody warned me that unless I was careful, and even if I was careful, I might get hurt. In my graduate school days, I heard only one mention of danger, from a social worker who had several bones broken by a delinquent teenager. Bandaged from top to toe, she wryly admonished me, never get between an out-of-control adolescent and the door. A few years ago, I attended a standing room-only workshop on violence. The presenter asked people in the room who had been assaulted by clients to raise their hands. 2/3 of the room did so. Then he asked people to again raise their hands if they had required medical care because of a client's assault. 100 therapists in our small, relatively safe state had been seriously hurt by their clients or their clients' relatives. It makes sense that therapists would be victims of violence. We deal with alcoholics, people with anger control problems, psychopaths, people in crises, and the seriously mentally ill. We testify in custody and commitment hearings. We report child abuse and neglect. If teenagers are about to kill themselves or someone else, we tell their parents. We counsel gang members, methamphetamine addicts, and paranoid gun owners. We see people referred by employers because they scare their coworkers. Doctors, school teachers, family members, and employers send us their out-of-control people. Generally, therapists have no training in self-defense. Most offices do not have police or security. Many therapists work alone, and some do home visits to people they have never met. One of my former students had a placement in an East Coast city that involved working nights at a walk-in drug treatment program in a rough neighborhood. She was lucky she wasn't killed. In my practice, I don't see many clients who are court-ordered into therapy, and if I can spot them in time, I turn down sociopathic clients. That is a luxury most therapists don't have. Still, over the years, I've had my share of menacing phone calls and people threatening to hurt me. There have been times when I was grateful that my home address and phone number were unpublished. I recall the Christmas I was pondering a death threat by a stalker who I had worked with briefly. I cried as I watched my 5-year-old daughter play carols with other Suzuki violinists in the brightly lit lobby of a bank. She and her friends looked so innocent and vulnerable. Outside, snow turned our city dark and cold. Part of being safe is being judicious in what we say in sessions, although this is a complicated issue. Sometimes we have an ethical responsibility to tell clients to do things that may put us in danger. We may have to insist clients protect their children from sexually abusive relatives by calling the police. In general, however, our job is not to tell people what to do. We present choices, clarify issues, and help people predict their own futures. But we can't control how we are quoted outside our sessions. Many clients tell their families that we said they should do something that they wanted to do. Only unfortunately, the clients hadn't the courage to own their decisions. I once held a session with a woman who spoke bitterly about her mate, and at the end of the hour, announced she would seek a divorce. I encouraged her to slow down and consider marital therapy, but she drove home and told her husband that I had advised her to seek an immediate separation. The next day, her husband called, swore at me for a while, then threatened to beat me up. Fortunately, I was able to talk him down. Many therapists don't discuss scary incidents with their colleagues because they fear they will be blamed for mishandling things. That is a big mistake. Have an office plan for danger. Talk with your colleagues about how you can signal each other if something alarming happens during a session. Take a self-defense course. Keep your home phone and address private. Don't talk about your personal life in sessions, and don't have family pictures and other mementos on display. Don't box clients in, figuratively or literally. People who feel trapped can be dangerous. If a client scares you, respect that feeling. If a situation feels unsafe, don't go into it. If you already are in, exit quickly and cautiously. You have a responsibility to assess for danger constantly, not only for yourself, but also for your clients and for other people involved in the case. If there are risks, do what must be done to protect everyone. Have an extra therapist in the room, consult with attorneys, or call the police. Laura, this letter is not meant to frighten you. It's really an ounce of prevention letter. Our field tends to be in denial about danger. For the most part, therapists are gentle, trusting people who find it hard to believe anyone would hurt them. But forewarned is forearmed. I don't want you to lie awake nights trembling like a mouse stalked by a red fox. Chapter 20. Therapy and Writing. September 11th. Cape Town, South Africa. Dear Laura, last year on September 11th, our daughter was in Cape Town. Along with all our other fears, we worried about Sarah. How would she make it home with her flight canceled and perhaps a war or another terrorist attack on the way? By coincidence, I am working in South Africa exactly 1 year later. I have driven through the glorious blooming prairie to the Cape of Good Hope. I hiked Table Mountain and felt its tablecloth of deep fog surround me. I toured the poor township of Langa and the District 6 Museum, Cape Town's version of the Holocaust Museum. I visited Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 30 years. Today I have thought about last September 11th and my daughter. When Sarah finally returned from South Africa, she was out of step with the rest of us. As a way to deal with her intense grief, I recommended that she write. I said, for me, writing is the best therapy. I don't know how people who don't write survive. When you asked me recently which I liked most, writing or doing therapy, you stumped me. I felt like you were asking which of my kids I prefer. Still, I pondered your question, realizing how alike the two enterprises are. For many years, I wrote in the mornings and did therapy in the afternoon. Both jobs involve spending time in small rooms waiting for inspiration, and both possess a considerable amount of mumbo-jumbo. Writers and therapists enact rituals to induce trances in themselves. My trances involve desks and drinks. When I write, I drink coffee at my desk overlooking my garden. My desk has all kinds of pens, paper, and pencils to keep me going. When I do therapy, I have legal pads for taking notes and bottled water. I try to keep fresh flowers on both desks. With either kind of work, ringing phones or headaches can ruin our concentration. At the end of the day, our backsides hurt and we aren't sure if we've done anything lasting. We're a little shocked when we reemerge into the real world of traffic, our families, and the nightly news. Poet William Carlos Williams wrote, "Catch an eyeful, catch an earful, and don't drop what you have caught." This advice to writers applies equally well to psychotherapists. The tools of our trade include our intuition, intelligence, warmth, and character structures. Both jobs are highly disciplined endeavors that involve posing questions and generating problems to solve. They require laborious excavating for emotional truths. Both kinds of work demand we use everything we've got all the time. Writer Rose Ellen Brown offered succinct advice for writers: show up, pay attention, tell the truth, and don't be attached to results. That is not a bad set of rules for therapists either. Both writers and therapists walk a tightrope. We must give the work our all, and yet we must detach from success or failure. Otherwise, we try too hard, and trying too hard at therapy or writing is like trying too hard at sleeping, having an orgasm, or being liked. It doesn't work. I studied 4 years as an undergraduate and 5 years as a graduate student to get my PhD in clinical psychology, but I taught myself to write. Still, there is a sense in which all writers and therapists, no matter where they study, are self-taught. We learn by making and then correcting mistakes. Nobody is good in the beginning. After a decade of hard work, I felt that, both as a therapist and writer, I knew what I was doing most of the time. By then, I had good habits and a sense for the process. But beyond this level of competence, I kept learning. People are peculiar, and nothing ever happens twice. Over time, competent writers and therapists develop a voice. Ideally, this voice expresses one's best inner knowledge. Work done with a true voice looks natural and easy to observers, but most of us must struggle to find a voice that beams through all our work. In writing and therapy, nothing is more important than a likable guide. With Bill Moyers, Mary Oliver, or Molly Ivins, I'd enjoy a ride to the recycling center. With dull or unsavory characters, I would dread a trip to Paris. Great guides are humble, competent, kind, and calm. They emanate an unusual mix of innocence and sophistication. Most important of all, good guides are trustworthy and inspire others. Therapy and writing both ask their subjects to react emotionally. After reading a good book, readers are changed, and truly great works such as War and Peace, Silent Spring, and The Good Earth change the world forever. After a profound therapy session, clients are willing to re-examine the way they live their lives. The rigid Catholic father says of his son's Buddhism, "The prayers of all good people are good prayers." The bitter husband says, "Maybe I haven't really seen my wife the way she truly is." The alcoholic thinks, "Perhaps I could have a better life if I gave up booze." Both jobs require a certain amount of verbal cleverness, but glibness also can get in the way. Writing that is too elegant distracts the reader, and believe it or not, I once saw a therapist demonstrate a fancy schmancy technique while calling the client the wrong name. The client was not impressed. Writers and therapists expose the unexposed. These whistleblower jobs are risky and punishing. We are subversives who commit the crime of telling the truth, often to people who have deeply vested interests in lies. We say to the daughter, "You can talk about the abuse you experienced from your stepfather." We say to tobacco companies, "We know you are advertising to our children, and that is wrong." Writers and therapists live twice. First, when they experience events, and a second time when they use them in their work. Writers and therapists face worthy opponents. Writers call it the inner critic or writer's block. For therapists, it is resistance. We can only be successful when we learn to confront and conquer that opponent. Both therapists and writers work at the edge of our envelopes. Faulkner wrote, "Writing a novel is like trying to knock together a chicken coop in the middle of a hurricane." Somerset Maugham observed, "There are 3 secrets to writing a novel. Unfortunately, no one knows what they are." Our work as therapists is complex and ambiguous. Success remains elusive and temporary. Writers must continually fight our awareness that we are not smart enough or skilled enough to do what we want to do. Therapists constantly discover that we simply aren't capable of changing human beings. Both jobs are frustrating, demanding, and fraught with emotional peril, and they are the best jobs around. As William Stafford said, "It's really fun if you can stand it." Many therapists speak of their gratitude that they are allowed the honor of doing the work they do. And over the years, I have never met anyone who said she was sorry she was a writer. Both kinds of work share great rewards, lives lived intensely and fully, and conversations that are close to the heart of matters. We're damn lucky we have this work. Laura, I hope sometime you can visit Cape Town. I'll leave here with my heart aching and my mind churning. In Langa, women washed their clothes by hand at a lone water pump, and sheep heads covered with flies were piled on street corners, meat for the poor in that sad place. And yet the jacaranda trees rained purple flowers. Another tree, called the Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow tree, blossomed in 3 colors, white, pink, and red. Now that's an image a poet or therapist could turn into a metaphor.